All right, so get ready for a deep dive. That's a little different from our usual stuff.
Oh,
We're going to be looking at real-life encounters, with the unsettling. The kind of stories that make you double-check your locks and maybe sleep with the lights on, for sure.
okay.
These are listener-submitted stories to a show called Shadows of the Unknown.
Mm.
And even though there aren't any ghosts or monsters, trust me, these will get under your skin.
I believe it.
What's extra creepy is that all of these stories happen during the graveyard shift.
Oh, interesting.
That time of night when everything feels just a little bit off.
You know what's so fascinating about these stories is that they tap into a kind of fear that's very primal, very real.
Right.
It's not about jump scares or supernatural beings.
Yeah.
It's about the unknown within human behavior itself.
Yeah.
The fact that they all happen during the graveyard shift just heightens that sense of isolation and vulnerability, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like the world transforms after midnight,
Right.
and suddenly those familiar places, the all-night grocery store, the empty gas station,
Yeah.
become these eerie landscapes where anything could happen.
I can definitely see that.
Okay, are you ready to jump into the first story?
Absolutely.
This one is called The Stranger in the Aisle.
Okay.
And it starts with Mike working the night shift at a 24-hour grocery store.
Mm.
Just stocking shelves, going through the motions when he hears a noise in the next aisle.
Okay.
He looks up and sees a man just standing there staring.
It's interesting how that simple image,
Right.
a man standing and staring,
Yeah,
can immediately set off alarm bells in our minds.
totally.
What is it about that stillness, that unwavering gaze, that feels so unnerving?
Hmm.
In the story, Mike describes the man's face as cartoonish, almost like a mask.
Yeah, and that description really stuck with me, too. It's like,
Mhm.
on the surface, there's nothing overtly threatening about this guy.
Yeah.
But there's something just off about him.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are wired to pick up on these subtle cues that something isn't right.
Exactly.
Like a spidey sense.
Psychologists call this the uncanny valley effect.
Hmm.
It's that feeling of unease we get when we encounter something that looks almost human, but not quite.
Yeah.
It triggers a deep-seated sense of wrongness, a warning signal that something's not as it should be.
Yeah.
Think about those realistic robots or CGI characters that look almost human, give you the creeps.
Oh, yeah.
Same principle at play here.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this uncanny feeling just intensifies as the story goes on, right?
Right.
The man starts asking Mike these strange, personal questions.
Oh, no.
Gets a little too close for comfort.
Oh.
So Mike, totally creeped out, makes a beeline for the back room.
Yeah, I do the same.
But guess what?
What?
The man follows him.
That relentless pursuit, that disregard for personal boundaries is a major red flag.
Yeah.
It's a classic tactic used by predators, both in the animal kingdom and among humans.
Wow.
It's a way of asserting dominance, of breaking down the victim's defenses and making them feel trapped.
And Mike definitely feels trapped.
The-
He ends up hiding in the employee bathroom, thinking he's finally safe.
Oh, gosh.
But then he sees it, an eye peering through a crack in the stall door. I mean, talk about a heart-stopping moment.
That image is so powerful, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It taps into our primal fear of being watched,
Right.
of being hunted.
Yeah.
The eye becomes a symbol of the predator,
Yeah.
this unseen presence that's aware of our every move.
It's like in a horror movie.
Exactly.
And the fact that it's happening in a bathroom, a place we usually associate with privacy and safety, makes it even more unsettling.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It completely shatters that sense of security.
Totally.
So Mike, panicking, grabs his box cutter,
Oh, my God.
slashes at the door, and makes a run for it.
Wow.
By the time the cops arrive, the man is gone. Vanished without a trace. It leaves everyone, including the police, completely baffled.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, what even happened there?
Yeah, how do you even explain that?
Yeah.
What's so disturbing about this story is the ambiguity, the lack of closure. We never really know what the man's intentions were. Was
Yeah.
he simply mentally unstable? Was it a cruel prank taken too far?
Right.
Or was there something truly sinister at play?
Yeah.
That uncertainty is what makes it linger in our minds, making us question the motives of every stranger we encounter.
It definitely makes you rethink those late-night trips to the grocery store, doesn't it? We often talk about stranger danger, but
yeah.
this story shows that even familiar places can become unsettling when you're alone and vulnerable.
It's almost as if these stories are peeling back the layers of our perceived safety, revealing the cracks beneath.
Yeah.
And speaking of cracks in our sense of security, that brings us to our next story, The Silent Watcher.
Okay.
This one takes place at a remote gas station on a freezing December night.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, our protagonist, is working the graveyard shift all alone when this beat-up red pickup truck pulls in.
And out steps a man who is described as unnervingly still, with this intense gaze that immediately makes Tom's hair stand on end. What's interesting is that it's not what the man says, it's his body language.
Yeah.
There's something predatory about his stillness, his silence. It's like he's sizing Tom up like a wolf eyeing its prey.
You're hitting on a crucial point there.
Okay.
Nonverbal communication can be just as powerful, if not more so, than spoken words.
Right.
Think about the way animals communicate threat. Bared teeth, raised hackles, direct eye contact.
Oh, yeah.
These are primal signals that bypass language and trigger an immediate fear response.
Right.
In this story, the man's stillness, his unwavering gaze, act as those nonverbal cues setting off Tom's internal alarm system.
It's like our instincts are screaming at us to pay attention, that something's not right.
Exactly.
And Tom, being no fool, listens to his gut. He locks the door, flips the close sign, and retreats to the counter.
Good idea.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not even close. In fact, this is where the tension really starts to build.
Oh, no.
The man, instead of leaving, walks right up to the gas station, standing mere inches from the glass, staring directly at Tom.
Oh.
And then the pounding begins.
Oh, my God.
Violent, relentless attempts to break down the door.
It's a nightmare scenario. Tom's trapped alone with this unknown assailant trying to force his way in.
Oh, my goodness.
He calls the police, but even the operator on the other end seems unsure if it's a real emergency.
Wow.
And then, just as abruptly as it started, the pounding stops.
Oh, wow.
The man gets back in his truck and drives away, leaving Tom in this chilling silence, this unresolved terror.
That sudden silence, that abrupt end of the chaos, can be more terrifying than the noise itself.
Right.
It leaves us in a state of heightened alertness, our minds racing to fill the void, imagining the worst possible outcomes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that moment in a horror movie when the music cuts out and you're left holding your breath, waiting for the jump scare.
But the jump scare never comes, right?
Wow.
The threat is gone, but the fear remains. It makes you wonder what was going through that man's mind. What was his goal? Was it a power play? A twisted attempt to instill fear? We're left with so many unanswered questions, which only adds to the unsettling nature of the story.
Exactly. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we don't always get answers.
Right.
Sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones we can't explain, the ones that defy logic and leave us questioning our own perception of reality.
So we have two stories now, both set during the graveyard shift, both featuring these unsettling encounters with strangers who seem to operate outside the bounds of normal social behavior. It's starting to feel like the world transforms after midnight, revealing a darker side of humanity that we rarely glimpse during the day.
That's a keen observation. It's like these stories are holding up a mirror to our society, showing us that the line between the ordinary and the unsettling can be incredibly thin, especially when the veil of normalcy is lifted under the cover of darkness. These encounters make us question, how well do we really know the people around us? And how do we navigate a world where even the most mundane interactions can take a sinister turn?
It's a chilling thought. Okay, before we move on to our final story, which I have a feeling is going to be the most disturbing yet, I want to ask you, what's resonating with you the most so far? What are your initial thoughts on these stories and the themes they're exploring?
You know what strikes me is how both of these stories play with our sense of vulnerability.
Yeah.
We're conditioned to think of certain places as safe, the grocery store, the gas station.
Right.
But these stories show us that even in those familiar settings,
Yeah.
our sense of security can be shattered in an instant.
It's like these stories are reminding us that danger doesn't always wear a mask.
Right.
It doesn't always announce itself.
Exactly.
Sometimes it lurks in the shadows, disguised as the ordinary, waiting for the right moment to strike.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final story, The Basement Intruder, which, as you said, is perhaps the most unsettling of them all, because it blurs the lines between real and imagined danger.
Right.
It starts with Lisa, who has a seemingly harmless encounter with a strange man at a 7-Eleven.
Okay.
You know, just one of those odd interactions we all experience from time to time.
Right.
But later that night, she gets a phone call.
And it's him, the man from the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
But instead of speaking, he makes these guttural, inhuman noises that send chills down her spine. I mean, imagine getting that call in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It would make anyone question their sanity, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
At this point, The story is playing with our perceptions,
Yeah.
making us wonder if Lisa is misinterpreting the situation,
Hmm.
if her fear is amplifying an otherwise harmless encounter.
Right.
Is it a prank? A case of mistaken identity?
Mm-hmm.
Or something more sinister?
Yeah.
It's that uncertainty that makes this story so effective.
Totally.
It keeps us guessing, keeps us on edge, just like Lisa.
And then she makes a chilling discovery in her basement.
Huh.
Scattered papers, her home address scrawled on the wall, and knives laid out like trophies.
Oh my God.
It's undeniable proof that the man from the 7-Eleven has been in her home. He's been watching her.
Imagine the violation.
I know.
The feeling of being invaded in the one place you should feel safest.
Right.
This story taps into our primal fear of being watched, of having our privacy violated.
Yeah.
It's a fear that's deeply rooted in our evolutionary history.
Right.
Our ancestors had to be constantly vigilant, aware of potential predators lurking in the shadows.
Yeah.
That instinct, that sense of vulnerability is still hardwired into our brains.
And this story really brings that fear to the surface, doesn't it? What's even more disturbing is that the story doesn't end with a confrontation or a resolution.
Right.
The man is gone when the police arrive, but the psychological impact on Lisa is lasting.
Yeah.
She's left with this lingering fear, this feeling of being watched even when she's alone.
That's the truly terrifying part, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that these experiences can leave such deep psychological scars.
Right.
It's not just about the physical threat. It's about the erosion of our sense of safety, the feeling that the world is no longer a predictable, secure place.
Right.
It's a fear that can linger long after the danger has passed, shaping our behavior, our choices, our perception of the world around us.
So we've explored 3 stories tonight, each unique in its own way, yet all connected by this common thread of unsettling encounters, vulnerability, and the lasting impact of fear. What's the takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from these stories that might help us navigate a world where these shadows seem to lurk around every corner?
I think the key takeaway is that fear is a powerful emotion,
Right.
and it's important to understand how it works, how it can be triggered and manipulated.
Yeah.
These stories remind us that danger can lurk in unexpected places,
Yeah.
that even seemingly harmless encounters can take a sinister turn. But they also remind us that we're not powerless.
Right. We have the power to choose how we respond to fear.
Exactly.
How we let it shape our lives.
Yeah.
We can let it paralyze us, or we can use it as a catalyst for awareness, for preparedness.
Exactly. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Understanding the psychology of fear, recognizing the tactics that predators use, and learning how to de-escalate potentially dangerous situations can go a long way in making us feel more confident and secure.
Yeah.
It's about empowering ourselves, not letting fear control us.
And maybe sharing our stories, like the listeners who submitted these tales, can help us process those fears and find comfort in knowing that we're not alone in experiencing these unsettling moments.
Absolutely. Sharing our experiences creates a sense of community, a reminder that we're all in this together, navigating the complexities of human nature and the uncertainties of the world around us. So to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
How have these stories changed your perception of everyday places and encounters? What will you do differently knowing that even the most mundane settings can harbor shadows of the unknown?
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep sharing your stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones that hit closest to home.